John Wick. Chapter 4. Full narrative summary. John Wick's life has been war. For years. Once an assassin who longs only for peace after the death of his wife, he's been dragged back into the underworld again and again. By the start of John Wick Chapter 4, he is one step away from complete annihilation, hunted, excommunicated, and carrying the world's largest active bounty on his head. When we first see him, John isn't hiding on a tropical island or recuperating in a safe house. He's deep beneath New York City, alongside the Bowery King. He's a longtime ally in the underground, recovering after having been shot off the roof of the Continental Hotel by Winston in the Parabellum finale. Despite the brutality inflicted on him, John is far from finished. His mission now is simple in his mind. Dismantle the High Table, the secretive council that governs the global assassin network and has marked him for death. Morocco, the first steps in a global war. John's first move is to track down the Elder, the mysterious figure who sits above the High Table's hierarchy. If he can kill the Elder, he hopes that the chain of command will collapse, or at least weaken enough to give him a fighting chance. So he travels to the deserts of Morocco, an exotic locale where the sun burns as fiercely as his desire for freedom. In that forbidding landscape, John confronts the Elder and succeeds in killing him. A brutal, quiet confrontation that makes clear his determination and the fact that he will stop at nothing. But shockwaves ripple out from this act of defiance. The High Table responds not with negotiation, but with fury. Enter the Marquis. High Table's new champion. High Table member Marquis Vincent Bisite de Gramont arrives on the scene. He is aristocratic, well-connected, and empowered with near-limitless resources to hunt John down. He does not waste time proving his power. First, he punishes Winston for having failed to kill John before stripping him of his rank, declaring him excommunicado, destroying the New York Continental, and executing Karen, Winston's loyal concierge. These acts send a blunt message. There will be no mercy. In service to his mission, the Marquis recruits Kane, a blind assassin, an old friend of John's. Kane is retired, but the Marquis threatens the life of Kane's daughter unless Kane agrees to hunt John. Kane is forced back into the violence he hoped to have left behind, creating a personal and emotional conflict that complicates his pursuit of Wick. The Osaka Continental, a bloody sanctuary. John seeks refuge in Osaka, Japan. At the Osaka Continental, a sanctuary run by his old friend Shimasu Koji. There, among neon lights and hushed corridors, John tries to regroup, but the High Table's reach is too long. Chidi, the Marquis' second in command, arrives with elite assassins to deconsecrate the hotel, which means rendering its sanctuary status void and killing everyone inside. The assassination attempt escalates into a massive fight. Koji's daughter, Akira, works to evacuate the remaining staff before the bloodshed begins, embodying both courage and helplessness in the face of overwhelming force. The hotel becomes a battleground. Bodies fall, explosions echo, and John fights with every ounce of skill he has left. In the middle of this chaos, John also confronts Kane. Their duel is tense and personal. Kane's loyalty to his daughter versus his residual respect for John. Before the fight can reach its conclusion, a bounty hunter named Mr. Nobody intervenes. After sizing up the situation and calculating the current bounty on John, he determines it isn't worth his effort and lets John escape, a decision that reflects the twisted economics of the assassin world. Koji, wounded and outmatched, intervenes in the fight and sacrifices himself, hoping to give John the edge. Kane, torn between duty and compassion, kills Koji, but spares Akira. Her survival and her vow of revenge becomes a lingering new thread in the story. Returned to New York, a proposal for freedom, John heads back to New York, where he finds Winston at Karen's gravesite. Winston is furious and heartbroken after losing both Karen and the Continental. Yet he proposes a plan. Under ancient High Table tradition, John can challenge the Marquis to a formal duel. If John wins, he will be freed from all obligations to the High Table, including the bounty and its death sentence. But the conditions are strict. John must issue the challenge on behalf of a recognized crime family. To do that, John must regain status with the Ruska Roma, a crime syndicate he once belonged to but had severed ties with. So he travels to Berlin to plead for reinstatement. His adoptive sister Katya demands proof of his loyalty. John must kill Keela Harkin, a grotesque and powerful high table member who controls parts of the underworld and who had been paid by the Marquis to prevent John's plan. At Keela Berlin nightclub, an indoor fortress pulsing with music and violence. John fights one of the most cinematic battles in the entire franchise. Harkin is menacing, brutal, and grotesque, yet John defeats him with calculated ferocity. His victory doesn't just earn him reinstatement with the Roma. It reasserts his legend in the assassin world. The duelist at Paris awaits with Ruska, Roma backing him. John issues the duel challenge. Winston agrees to act as John's second, the formal representative in the high table ritual, negotiating the terms. If John wins, Winston's excommunication will be lifted and the New York Continental will be rebuilt under his management. If John loses, Winston dies too. The final confrontation is scheduled at Sacre or in Paris at sunrise, a stark contrast between the city's beauty and the violence soon to unfold. The Marquis chooses Kane as his proxy. Meanwhile, the Bowery King arrives in Paris to give John a special ballistic suit and a pistol. Symbolic gestures of alliance and mutual respect between two men pushed outside the rules of society. Chaos in the streets. The bounty strikes back. The Marquis isn't content to fight fairly. He places an enormous $26 million bounty on John, which quickly escalates to $40 million when Mr. Nobody brokers a higher payout to other assassins. This ignites one of the most intense sequences of the film. Almost every assassin in Paris attempts to intercept John during his journey to the duel. This gauntlet of violence plays out through iconic Paris locations, including frantic chases through the Arc de Triomphe, shootouts among abandoned buildings, and relentless combat. Up the 222 steps of Sacre, John is shot, stabbed, and pummeled repeatedly, but each wound steels his resolve. Along the way, Mr. Nobody pursues John, until John saves his dog from being killed by cheating, something that triggers Mr. Nobody to abandon his hunt, and even assist John later. Kane, still bound to the Marquis' orders, but conflicted by his own respect and friendship with John, also helps him fight his way through. In the brutal hellscape on the stairs, alliances shift, bullets fly, and chases blur into chaos. Sacre, the final duel at last. John reaches the summit on time. At dawn, the duel begins. The rules of the ritual are strict. John and Kane take 3 rounds of pistol shots at increasing proximity -30, then 20, then 10 paces. Both men hit each other in the first 2 rounds, earning shallow but painful wounds. In the final round, Kane severely wounds John, knocking him to the ground. The Marquis, intoxicated by arrogance and convinced of his victory, demands to administer the coup de grace himself. He takes Kane's place, unaware that John never fired his 3rd shot. But freedom comes at a steep cost. John, mortally wounded, walks through the quiet dawn of Paris. He pauses a rare moment of stillness, reflecting on the love of his wife, Helen, and the life he wished he could have had with her. Then he slowly collapses from his injuries. Some interpret this as his death, others see it as ambiguous. Directors themselves have said the ending was meant to be open to interpretation. Back in New York, Winston and the Bowery King are shown standing beside a gravestone bearing John's name, placed next to the grave of his wife, symbolizing both the end of an era and a man finally at rest. Epilogue threads, left untied in a brief post-credits scene. Kane returns to Paris to reunite with his daughter. But Akira, the Osaka Continental concierge whose father was killed earlier, appears seeking vengeance. She carries a knife, hinting that the cycle of violence in this shadowy world isn't over. Conclusion: John Wick. Chapter 4 is a sprawling tale of revenge, honor, and the crushing costs of freedom. From the deserts of Morocco to neon Japan, from Berlin's underground to Paris's soaring basilica, John's final journey is as much existential as it is physical. Every fight, every ally and enemy, pushes him toward one goal: the end of the high table S. grip, and the possibility of peace. While the duel's outcome grants him that freedom, it comes with wounds far deeper than mere bullets, and a conclusion that resonates with quiet tragedy against the film's explosive action.